without further ado, because we've got a tight timeline to work through, I'm going to ask Russell Sherman to come on up here. Russell was our MC at the last Greenwich Economic Forum in Greenwich. Russell was a partner at Project Partners, the public relations firm. Very knowledgeable, very well respected in our industry, and a great friend. He is going to be sitting down in conversation with Alex Rodriguez. Alex, to my right, coming up and down from the Seattle Mariners and the New York Yankees, and now the founder of A-Rod Corp. My little bit of famous by association, I was telling Alex earlier that my wife is Ann Rodriguez. When she was in high school, she was known as A-Rod. And my son, before we knew you, my son, Alex Rodriguez McGuire, is also a University of Miami alum, and he's very sorry that he couldn't be here today, but we'll get him here next year or get you up to Greenwich. So with that, let me turn things over to Russell and Alex.
Thank you, Bruce. It's great to see everybody here. I think, Alex, for you being here in Miami, kind of extra special as this city has kind of grown up around you. You've seen it since the beginning days. I think there's a pretty cool story in terms of Alex. He actually, A-Rod Corp now has its headquarters in Coral Gables, and it's actually on the same spot in a building where he signed his first contract with the Seattle Mariners, coincidentally, which is a pretty cool coincidence.
And a long time ago.
And a long time ago. You're hanging in there though. You're looking good. So when I first got introduced to Alex, I of course knew him, as we all knew him, as a baseball legend. Truth be told, I'm a Red Sox fan, so I wasn't exactly rooting for the Yankees teams, but I still had a lot of respect for Alex and what he's done on a baseball diamond. I did not know that much about his business life, and the more I learned, the more I found someone who was pretty incredible in terms of being thoughtful and humble, and with a real business acumen. And so Alex, as we sort of talk about your business life, when did you first get involved in investing?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm in Miami, and I've been here pretty much my whole life, and started at the Boys and Girls Club. Can you guys hear me okay in the back? Yeah. And ever since I was like 10 years old, I had like two real like missions and visions and values. I wanted to do the two B's, baseball and business. And of course, we all think baseball is going to be in all our futures. I was very fortunate that I was able to stay healthy, and my mom created me big and strong. I was able to play for about 25 years, which is pretty incredible, when the average career is about 5.5 years. And then business, growing up here in Miami, my mother had 2 jobs. My father left when I was 10, and the one thing that I knew really well was apartments, because we always rented. We never had enough capital to buy anything. And the one thing that my great mentor, Warren Buffett, taught me was, stay in your circle of competence. And my circle of competence was very, very small, but I stayed in there and I spotted, first time I had an opportunity to buy and invest in real estate was about, early 20s, and I bought a small duplex, and then we traded that for double, and a couple years later, and so on and so forth. And grew a portfolio well over 15,000 apartment units in about 14 states, all over the Southeast.
You talk about being a little kid and being forced to move because you did not have the money to stay in one place for any one time, and sort of praying that you could be the landlord one day. How satisfying is it for you to have created what you've created?
Yeah, really satisfying. Look, my mom was, she served tables at night. She was secretary in the morning, but I remember at nighttime, right here in Miami, about 20 minutes away from here in a town called Kendall, where I would wait for her at night. I would be watching WOR, watching the Mets game, Ralph Kiner and Tim McCarver on TV, and while we were, very moderate, very modest, economic background, I felt like I was rich because I got to watch baseball every night, and I was in sports my whole life. That's why I think sports is so important for young people. And I would take her pouch out of her, belt, and we would start counting her tip money. And like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, it was like 25, 26, 27, 28 bucks. And then towards the weekends, it was like 58, 59, 60, 61 bucks. And I loved it. I was like, Mom, we're like really rich. We got like 60 bucks. And then something interesting would happen. She would then take that money, put it in an envelope, and I would help her, and I remember like it was yesterday, lift up the mattress, and we would put the money in there. And I said, Mom, why the mattress? There's banks all around us. There's chains. And she goes, son, we don't trust banks, we trust our mattress. So that's kind of where I started my whole mission about financial literacy. That really understanding financial literacy, the way capital works, the way capital flows in the public markets, the private markets, and the importance of cash flow at an early age. I always envisioned that if I had an opportunity to invest, I'm going to do that and trade places with a landlord.
So you have this drive to be in business, even though you're a successful baseball player. And I know one of the people you idolize is Magic Johnson. So you meet with Magic to sort of figure out, okay, how does one transform themselves from just a star athlete into a really formidable business person? What did you learn from Magic?
Yeah, so Irving Magic Johnson is one of my heroes, and he's a great friend and a mentor. And the buzzword that everyone talks about today is diversity. And people want to do it because they have to or it's important, but to me, it's like the only way to do it because it's the best way to run a business. Because you need people from different ways of life coming to the boardroom and giving different opinions. You can't just have like 4 Latinos or just 4 whites. You need a little bit of everything. And what happened with Magic, about 25 years ago, he took me out to have a drink, and there was about a 30-minute planned drinks, and we stayed for about 3.5 hours. And in the course of that, he was so generous with his time. I had like 10 or 11 pages of notes. He shared basically his blueprint of how he's built his multi-billion-dollar platform called Magic Johnson Enterprise. And to this day, he influenced my life because, one thing is for me to see like a white person with a suit and tie. The other thing is seeing a man of color that played sports like me to be able to shift from baseball or basketball to the boardroom. And it gave me it was at that moment that my life changed, and I said, oh my gosh, someone just like me can actually do it. You don't have to be just one thing really good. And there's just going to be this natural bias. What I tell my daughters all the time, I have 2 daughters, 17 and 13, and I'm always pointing out very powerful women in the work field or in politics or in, they love Broadway and dance and all of that. And I have a lot of the powerful women that work in my company. I have a firm that's led by women, and one of them is here, Erin. Where's Erin? Erin's here. Yeah. Erin's the president of a real estate company, and I have Kelly, who's not here, who's in Connecticut actually, and good friends of Russell, who runs the other part of our company. So really exciting, and Magic, to this day, I always thank him, and ironically, he played basketball and owns a baseball team. I play baseball, and I own a basketball team, so that was kind of fun.
He also talked to you a little bit about seeking out mentors. You've been called a sponge by many people when it comes to having meetings with lots of very successful people in the business world, always showing up with a notepad, always taking notes. You talked about the number of notepads you went through in your dinner with Magic. What has he taught you about, and how have you in your career really reached out to others to learn from them, and what value have you gained from that?
Yeah, he just basically talked to me about having a unique opportunity, and he shared a story about networking when Dr. Buss, the late Dr. Buss, who's owned the Lakers forever, his daughter Jeannie Buss runs the team today. He gave him a lifetime deal for $25 million. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember that, but at that time it was like, wow, that was the largest contract ever given in lifetime. That's like a long time. But Dr. Buss, to his credit, knew the value that Magic brought to the enterprise. And he realized early on that they're not in the sports business, they're in the entertainment business. And he immediately took all the media people from the first floor and basically created Celebrity Row, and kind of the Lakers started that. But Magic said, I'll sign this contract if you personally introduce me to all the ticket owners that sit on the floor and all our suite owners. And Dr. Buss said, that's it? And he goes, that's it. And sure enough, One of those introductions happened to be Starbucks, happened to be Peter Gruber over at Sony, and Mark Mastro's 24-Hour Fitness. So 3 or 4 of his major institutional deals came because of networking. So Magic said, you have this rare opportunity to, as you travel the country, as you travel the world, people will take a meeting with you. And it's really important that once you go in that meeting, you make it worth their while. And too many times I think people walk into the room and say, what's in it for me? But if you go around thinking, how can I be helpful? How can I connect people? How can I bring value to your business? It's always a much better way to go about it, is a missionary way. And I think in the long term, as you build businesses for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and it's how we think about it, I think you'll come out in front too.
Another one of those people that had an influence on you, especially on the real estate side, is Jerry Reinsdorf, owner of the Chicago Bulls, but also owner of the Chicago White Sox. And did you really end up tracking dirt all over Jerry Reinsdorf's office?
Yeah, Jerry Reinsdorf, I call him my rabbi and my great friend and mentor. And he's 85, and every time I would go to Chicago, he goes, what the hell do you want to do with me? I'm like 80, I'm not cool. And I would just track him down, and his office sat right outside our clubhouse in Chicago, right outside our Yankee clubhouse. So every game I would go in, after batting practice, in my gray uniforms, all sweaty, in a table like this, and I would put my sweaty arm on his desk, and we would talk for real estate for 30 minutes. And hardly ever talked about baseball or basketball, but it was really about real estate. And one of the things he taught me early on is he said, it's funny, our partner with Aaron, Stuart Jook, who leads our real estate company, worked for Jerry Reinsdorf in the late 70s, and then went on to work for Sam Zell for a long time. And I've been fortunate to have him as my partner for the last 12 or 13 years. He said, if your rent, if you're over 95% full, occupied, your rents are too low. If they're under 90%, your rents are too high. And the simplicity of that made a lot of sense, but a gazillion nuggets like that I've learned over the years from Jerry. And of course, he's been very helpful in our process with the Minnesota Timberwolves and the basketball team as well.
Talk to us about where we are today in real estate. In your mind, where are the opportunities as you see them, both nationally and obviously in the Miami market as well?
Yeah, look, talking about Stuart, Zook, and Aaron, look, we've been fortunate that we've bought over 70 deals. Thank God, never lost money in any of them. I think we pushed in 2. Our returns have been well in the upper 20s IRR, net of fees. And we have a great model, right? And we hang out in secondary and tertiary markets. Our average purchase per door is $80,000 a door. Average rent is about $1,200 to $1,400. So a little bit under the radar where we're not messing around with the Blackstones, the KKRs, and Barry and Starwood. But we've been doing this a really long time, and we have a niche. And Barry and Stuart been in the market for 40 years. We're not going out and paying market and retail. So it's a long way to say we think there's incredible opportunities still in these secondary and tertiary markets, especially if you have the deal flow and the relationships. But I think you have to be really, really careful today. I mean, we're probably selling 2,000 and buying 1,000. This just got ranked as the hottest city in the country, maybe in the world. And it's really interesting time right now. So I would be very patient, and we're sitting on a lot of cash waiting for opportunities.
We're going to open it up for questions in a little bit, but I want to continue talking about some of the various business interests that you have. So A-Rod Corp, obviously very steeped in real estate, but also in venture and other types of private equity investments. Let's talk about the venture space. You and Mark Lowry well known for founding Jet.com and selling it to Walmart for $3 billion. And as a co-owner with you, obviously, in the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll talk about that in a second. But you have co-founded a group called VCP Ventures. Talk to us a little bit about that focus. What's VCP stand for, and how did it all come about?
The first time I learned about VCP was from George Steinbrenner. And when George called me, I was with the Rangers, and our owner at the time had run into some financial issues, and I was one of the assets that he could trade. George Steinbrenner came calling and said, look, if you're willing to switch positions, we can make this happen. So I said, pinstripes I like, so why not? And I did that, but he first taught me about VCP, which is vision, capital, people. And he had a crystal clear vision of what he wanted the Yankees to be. The most powerful, most respected organization in the world when it comes to sports. He's media entertainment platform. Then he said, I'm gonna deploy more capital than anybody else, and then I'm gonna go find the best people in the world to work with you, and you're one of those people, and we're gonna go out and perform. The same was, talked to me about by Mark Laurie. He actually coined the phrase VCP. So our firm is called VCP Ventures. Very simply said, we're making big bets at the seed level, and then we're backing it in Series A. And if you look at a lot of the portfolios out there, the greatest investors in the world, I mean, if you look at their books are completely on the water. Some are 50%, 60% down, and they're in trouble. And what they've done is they've shifted from growth to seed and A. And we're sitting there, living there, and incubating these companies. We've made about 8 to 10 investments, 8 of being our first fund. And the idea is for our first fund is we want our LPs to just have a massive, massive win. So 2 and 3 can be a lot easier. But the idea of walking up to a founder saying, you're gonna have 10% non-dilutive. You don't have to spend 1 second of the day. We're gonna go out and raise all the money for you. The first $60 million comes from Mark and I, and we'll help you with your vision, the capital, and the people. And what we found is if you're in the right space with the right TAM, if you have the capital and you have the people, somebody pay you a big price for that as you get into more of the growth stage. So we're very excited about VCP.
Last week there was an announcement that you guys have invested in a firm called Mojo. Chase Coleman, I think, was also part of that, and some others, which is basically going to be a stock market for athletes, where you can invest in their performance and their outcomes. What's that? Why did that excite you? What was interesting about that?
Yeah, we think Mojo is really, really an exciting opportunity. If you talk to Mark, he thinks it has an opportunity to be a 30, 50, or $100 billion business. Instead of investing in just to go back up, Mojo is a hybrid between DraftKings and Robinhood. So instead of all these young people, and this has been turbocharged through COVID. My nephew Nick's here and he's investing all day trading. I'm like, what are you doing? Is he in a good mood or bad mood if his stocks are up or down? And he's trading $10, $20, but the idea is that instead of Nick and people like Nick investing into Amazon and Google and Facebook, they get to invest into LeBron James or A-Rod or Jeter, obviously current players today. And you do it with real science, real math, is war squared. So unlike the trading card business where if Tyler has a Joe DiMaggio rookie and his could be worth $5 million, I can have the same card and it can be worth $50,000 because he's got a 10 mint condition and I have a 6. And it's really frustrating to really understand that. If Tyler owns LeBron James, I can buy him just like you can buy him, just like the public stock. Amazon, if it's $2,900, that's the price. It's not subjective, it's very objective. So the business plan is really exciting, and just like taking a page from Warren Buffett, this is a very fluid, very liquid market. So we take in $10 billion of fees, just like Geico. If we can take that $10 billion and put it to work, if we get a 6 or 7% return, you have a business that throws off $600 or $700 million of free cash flow. And we think this is so early in the game that it has an incredible opportunity. And we put together a really, really world-class management team.
Alex, you talk about building your network over the years. How did building that network come into play with the opportunity for you and Mark to purchase the Timberwolves?
Yeah, people always ask me, what do you do at A-Rod Corp? And we basically do 2 things. We do real estate, fully integrated, and we do venture. And what we bring, I mean, at the level that I learned this from Mark Lazary, Michael, your partner. Mark Lazary basically taught me early on when I was with the Yankees. At this level, at the big league level, where we all are playing, pretty much do all the same thing, right? You got to do business with people you like and with people you trust. And I'd rather make a 12% return with someone that I trust and I like than a 50% return when I can't sleep at night. And I think that's true. What we bring is we bring world-class relationships across the globe. We can attract the best talent in the world to buy into our vision. And then we have tremendous deal flow. And our phone rings as much as anybody. And as an example of that is we took a good run at the Mets. We were the second winners. one lesson is don't go up against the richest guy in the world, or one of them, because Steve Cohen won and he's doing a great job and he's obviously deploying a lot of capital and good for baseball. But when that deal fell apart, the phone rang quickly and it was a Timberwolves deal. And what we saw was what we thought was a league that's healthier, a league that has tremendous leadership with Adam Silver and company, is a global sport, is a growing sport. The TV deal in 25 is due, should go up from 22 billion probably to 65 or 75 billion, compared to 110 of the NFL, compared to 10 billion of Major League Baseball. So NFL 110, we should land somewhere on 60 to 70 billion, and then Major League Baseball at 10 billion, just to give you a little idea and flavor of how popular football has gotten. And we looked at the deal and we looked and said, boy, is $1 billion cheaper than the Mets for 2.4. We're buying this for around 1.5 billion. And we quickly got that deal done in about 7 days. But it was because the phone rings and we were ready and we were prepared. Another deal, we just acquired Donald Trump's building in Washington, D.C. On Pennsylvania Avenue, about a few blocks away from the White House. We're converting that to the 14 Waldorf in the United States. We're probably going to bring in Cipriani's. I don't know if you guys have been to Casa in downtown New York, and make it a private club. And we think that has an opportunity to be one of the most sophisticated, prominent private clubs in the world, because obviously the proximity. So it's doing things like that and being opportunistic and being able to move fast that I think separates us from the rest.
How about sports as a platform? You, as you said, you went after the Mets. Now you own the Timberwolves. I would assume there's something more appealing than just the sports business itself. It's the overall platform.
Sports is an octopus of opportunities. I mean, it is crazy. It's funny. Mark Lasry, Michael. If you describe Mark Lasry or Blackstone, whether it's Josh or Barry Sternlicht, into the retail market, my mother wouldn't know who John Gray is, or wouldn't know who Barry Sternlicht is, but she certainly would know who Michael Jordan is or Magic Johnson. And my mother, for better or worse, would rather invest with Magic than with John Gray. Not saying that's smart, but it's what she knows, right? And she only has $700 to invest anyways into Michael's platform, which is a great platform. And that is a competitive advantage. As the world moves, and now private equity money is coming into sports, I think there's a world that in the next 5 years, Americans and people around the world are going to have an opportunity to be our partners. They're not going to have much say, they're not going to sit on the board, but they can put their money to work with this great asset that's growing 19% a year. And when we look at it, the league of the NBA, you have 3 teams that are around over $6 billion of value. We're looking at the worst house in the best neighborhood. So to come in at 1.5 billion, Mark and I both think this is a $5 billion asset in the next, call it, 15 or 20 years, maybe sooner. So I think what the NBA and NFL has gotten right, Major League Baseball is not quite there yet. Major League Baseball still thinks they're in the business of baseball. NFL and the NBA understand they're in the business of entertainment. And the Super Bowl is a perfect example. My girls do not like football. They've never watched a football game in their life, with the exception is they never miss a Super Bowl because of what? The commercials and the halftime show. So I think it's wise to think about it a little bit wider as an entertainment media platform that provides all these opportunities, and then you separate a holding company into a stadium co, team co, media co, and so on and so forth, venture co, and so on and so forth.
Bruce, can we take a couple questions or no?
Yes, we'll take a couple of questions. Okay. We'll use this opportunity to take a photo here, so just give them a camera so they have their
If please, yes, if you have not ordered your lunch, please order your lunch. I believe there's salmon or brick chicken. Those are your 2 options. And I'm told that key lime pie is for dessert.
right now. So everybody get your questions for Alex.
we did place our order. So raise your hand if you have a question, and we will certainly give it to Alex. But Alex, I wanted to ask you, obviously big news in baseball this week. How relieved are you that the 2 sides struck a deal?
I'm relieved and very excited, and look, it was a cringy moment. I think we all have to recognize the world has been underwater for the last 2 years, and it's so wonderful to be out and seeing people, and good-looking people, and healthy people, and between COVID, I was locked here with my family for whatever it was, a year and a half, and know what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. I think every day I wake up and thank the good Lord that we live in the best country in the world, that we're able to provide for our families, a healthy place, a safe place, and it's great to see people in the shadows of all of that. The optics was not good of seeing, billionaire owners with millionaire players fighting about, who gets the bigger piece of the pie. But nevertheless, they came to an agreement, and I hope that what they have fixed is the economic part of the game, or at least settled on. What they still have to address is the entertainment part. And I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. And again, I think diversity in the commissioner's office is something that's needed ASAP. And I think the more diverse they get, I think the younger and the wider their audience will be.
I'm gonna do my best game show imitation here. Where we got some questions? Walk over to you.
Hey, thank you. My name is Omar Yaku. I work for ABS Global Investments, but just more a personal question. I mean, what are some of your biggest regrets or failures in life and lessons learned? I mean, it seems like you had a perfect life, so give us some human aspect to it.
You must not read the news. Far from perfect. 2014, I served the longest suspension for PED use. That's for me my biggest. I've had a lot of disappointments. My most embarrassing, my most disappointing, where I disappointed my mother and my daughters. I got caught up in a situation and self-imploded. No one to blame but myself. While I wanted the suspension to be less than a year, thinking back on it, because I had to turn the lens inward and do tons of work with therapy and just kind of start diving into what happened at an early age that made me continue to implode. I needed the entire year, because it wasn't just lipsticks, right? It wasn't just like painting the windows and fixing the roof. I had to tear the whole house down and bring it back up one step at a time, one brick at a time. So that was one that obviously jumps off the page. The other one is, people talk about my career highlights, whether it's the home runs or the RBIs or even the championship in '09, but what they forget to say is that I'm 5th all-time in the history of the game, 5th all-time in the history of strikeouts. So that means that only 4 people in the history of mankind, 4, have struck out and failed more than me. So that gives me a PhD in failing. But I remind my daughters all the time, I also have a master's in getting back up. And I think that's the point. We're all gonna fail, we're all gonna struggle, we're all gonna slip, but you gotta get back up and wake up every morning like it never happened, and take that as an opportunity to move forward.
Great question, thank you.
Thanks. I was just wondering if you could comment on the NFL's pleadings to Byron Allen or Bob Smith to buy the Broncos, and your thoughts on the importance of diversity in the ownership for the NFL.
Well, I know Byron well. I think Byron's one of the great investors. He's built an incredible firm in BDT. He's been actually very helpful in my career. But I think diversity is important. I think Robert Smith would be a great ambassador for the game of football. And it seems like those two, are they joining together? Competing? Yeah, I mean, look, either way you win. The one thing is, you still have to go out and find who are the best people in the world and do it. And if they happen to be a minority, even better. But I do think that there's tremendous room for growth at the management level, at the ownership level. To think that I'm the first Latino owner in the NBA that's a governor is something that I'm very proud of, but it is not enough that I'm just there. I have to also leave that door open and bring others with me. And that's people of color, women, and with real power and a real voice, not just check the box.
Alex, talk a little bit about diversity in terms of how you look at it now as a owner of a business, hiring employees, thinking about bringing people together. How much of a role does it play now in what you're trying to do and build?
Yeah, it's huge. And again, I can just talk about what we do, and I think it's because of my connection to my mother, my two daughters, my sister. I'm attracted to strong, powerful women, and I think is important. Look, my company here at Corp is run by women. They barely listen to me, but I just think the company's better with diversity. I think having voices that are different. The last thing we want is people that just say yes, yes, yes. And you know, strong women are very good at saying no. So that's good.
Sure. Tyler Godoff, emerging founder. What's the next big sport? Is there room for another baseball, football? I last week received a deck for a pro pickleball team. Price tag's $500,000 to the team. So like, is pickleball the next sport? Like, what is there room?
Well, look, obviously Formula One is one of the biggest sports in the world with soccer. I think we've all learned what's happened through COVID and storytelling. I think content drives a lot of this. Formula One, this Netflix thing, I have not seen it, but the fans that they have created through a story, I think is powerful. If you look at what the NFL has done with kind of the behind the scenes, what's that show on HBO? Hard Knocks. All those things I think are really important, but are there sports coming? Yes, but I'm a big believer. Amazon's number one, right? Google's number one, Apple's number one. I think when you look at the top three sports in America, NFL and the NBA, I think lead the way. And I do think that in the next 10 years, it'll be very difficult to find a team under $5 billion in those two sports. So I'm not sure what's next. I'm really focusing on what I have, which is an NBA team that we have to go out and build, and that includes a new arena, a new vision, a new mission, and you know, we're doing pretty well right now.
Hi Alex, my name is Voltaire Escalona with Z Capital. What's your best piece of advice for a young entrepreneur of color, a young entrepreneur that fits, I guess, the diverse bucket?
Yeah, I guess, I come from the world of sports, so I never really looked at color as an asset or a liability. I just never saw colors. I just felt like you're a pitcher, your job is to get me out, and I don't care what color you are. I want to hit a home run, right? And I've taken the same approach to business. But I will say this, no matter what color you are, from age 20 to 30, and there's the advice I would give my daughters, we all have to pay our rent, and we have to be sensitive and compassionate to young people. The world is getting more expensive, but I would say from age 20 to 30, don't worry about money, worry about having a roommate, paying your bills, but go out and find the best leader, the best mentor, someone that's actually gonna bring you in the room and teach you the ropes, because we believe at A-Rock Corp that young people need to come in the room and take notes and get their reps, because the only way you get to learn is not by being told or a book. You have to go out and hear those phone calls and understand how deals get done, and I believe in the 90% rule. I'm okay with taking 90%, I want 10% for the other side, because ultimately I want to do 10 deals with you, not just one. And a lot of times people are so hardcore, I gotta get every cent. And what happens is you build resentment, and that'll be the last deal you do. And as a result, your reputation, you don't want to do business with them. If they don't get every cent, they're not gonna be happy. And ultimately, it's not a happy partnership.
That's it? Wow. You can blame Bruce.
We'll take
All right.
one more,
One.
a short one. And then,
One more.
Thank you. Hi, A-Rod. Catherine Keating from Bank of New York Mellon. I have a question. You talked about sports as entertainment broadly, and you talked about Mojo. What do you think about sports betting as part of that entertainment complex?
Massive component, and we've been flirting with betting for a long time. I think now it's coming to fruition, and I like the fact that you're opening up an entire world of capital markets that are going to be kosher, right? Because it's been happening, it just hasn't been kosher. So to bring in the leagues and make them part of it is fantastic. I mean, what Fanatics taught us is that if you let the players participate, you can rule the world. So Michael Rubin went to all the unions, got them to sign up, then went to the owners and the commissioners, and they had no choice. So with betting, I would look at it the same way. Let the players, I'm sure Pete Rose would have a lot to say here, but let the players be a part of the sweetness, right? And look, at the end of the day, when we win a championship and we won in '09, even the bat boy gets to taste a little champagne. And I think aligned economics, aligned interest, making everybody part of it, I think you just can't have all the money go to the top. You got to spread it around. I think it's a better business and more sustainable business where people are happy.
On that, we'll leave it. Alex, thank you for your time.